am the Lord your God.
I thought I had more time. I thought I could fix things later. But later is a lie we tell ourselves when we're too scared to face the truth. When I stood at the edge of eternity, everything I believed about life shattered. I saw the field, the place I was meant to be, and I saw the chasm that kept me from it. I heard the voices of people crying out, "Why didn't I listen? Why did I wait?" And then I realized I was one of them. What happens when you're not ready to meet God? What happens when you miss your chance to make it home? If you think you know the answers, you need to hear this story. It will change everything you believe about life and what comes after.
Before we begin this powerful and life-changing testimony, I want to ask you something. Have you ever wondered what happens when we take our last breath? This isn't just another story, it's a wake-up call. As you watch, let the message sink in. And if it touches you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And here's something else. Take a moment to engage. Drop a prayer in the comments or share your thoughts about what this story means to you. Your words could be the spark someone else needs.
My name is Caleb, and until recently, I thought I had life figured out. I wasn't a saint, but I wasn't the worst person you'd meet either. I went to church when I had to, said the right things in front of the right people, and kept my doubts buried deep. If you looked at me, you'd think I was just like anyone else, a decent person trying to get through life. But the truth, I was a professional pretender. I'm here to tell you what happened when my pretending came to an end. You see, I wasn't ready to meet God. I wasn't ready for what came after I took my last breath. And now I can't stop thinking, what if this hadn't happened to me? What if I had lived my entire life without knowing the truth? Let me back up a little. I grew up in a strict religious household. My dad was the kind of man who'd wake us up before sunrise for family prayers. He'd say, "Caleb, this is for your soul." But to me, it felt like rules and routines, like hoops to jump through just to stay in God's good books. And honestly, I hated it. By the time I was in my 20s, I'd walked away from all of it. Church, prayers, faith, I left it behind. I told myself, if God's real, he'll find me. Until then, I'll do things my way. So I chased success, I chased pleasure, I chased distractions to keep myself from asking the hard questions. Was there something more? Was I missing something? I buried those thoughts so deep, they almost disappeared. Almost. I spent years living like this. I was always busy, always looking for the next thing to fill the emptiness I didn't want to admit was there. I had friends who told me I was doing great, a family that still prayed for me, and part of me that said, what if they're right? What if this all ends one day and you're not ready? I ignored it. Until the night, everything changed. This isn't just a story about me dying. It's about what I saw after I died. It's about what happens when you stand on the edge of eternity and realize your whole life was a ticking clock. You never know when it's going to stop. And trust me, when it does, there's no going back to fix the things you should have done differently. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to see your life from the outside? To watch the choices you've made and know deep down whether you're ready to stand before God? That's exactly what happened to me. And if you're thinking this could never happen to you, let me be clear. I thought the same thing. But here's the thing. I didn't just die, I was shown things. I learned things that I never could have imagined. And now I can't stay silent. If I don't share this with you, if I don't warn you about what I saw, then what's the point of me coming back? The truth isn't always easy to hear. It's not dressed up in pretty words or wrapped in a nice bow, but it's the truth. And once you know it, you can't unknow it. So here I am, not because I want to scare you, but because I have to tell you what I saw. I have to tell you what's waiting on the other side. I thought I had more time. I thought I could fix things later. But later is a lie we tell ourselves when we're too scared to face the truth. If you've ever felt like something's missing, like there's a question you've been avoiding, then I need you to listen closely, because what happened to me could happen to you. And when it does, there won't be any excuses, no more second chances. I know you're probably wondering, what did you see? What happened to you? I'm getting there. But before I take you to that moment, let me ask you this. Are you ready to see your life the way I saw mine? Are you sure? Because once I tell you what happened, you'll never look at life or death the same way again. It started on what felt like a normal evening, but nothing about that night was normal. It was the night I took my last breath and my first step into the truth. The death event. The night it happened, I thought it was just another ordinary day. I had no idea it would be my last. I was driving home after a long day, my mind on everything except the road. You know how it is. Thinking about tomorrow, the bills, the plans, the things I'd put off for years. I had a playlist running, the kind of music that drowns out the noise in your head. Then, out of nowhere, it happened. I saw the headlights first. Bright, blinding, and far too close. My hands gripped the wheel, but it was already too late. The sound of metal twisting and glass shattering filled the air. I remember the weight of the impact, how everything seemed to slow down but happened so fast at the same time. And then nothing. For a moment, I thought I'd blacked out. But when I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my car anymore. I was standing on the side of the road, staring at the wreckage. And in the middle of it, I saw myself. My body was slumped over, lifeless. People were running toward the car, shouting, but their voices sounded distant, like they were underwater. I couldn't move. My legs felt like they weren't mine anymore. That's when I realized I was dead. Have you ever thought about what you'd feel in a moment like that? Fear? Shock? Maybe relief? I thought I'd be terrified, but instead I felt this strange calm, like the storm had passed and I was just floating. But then something else crept in. A question. Where am I going? Before I could even try to answer, everything changed. The calm was gone, replaced by this heaviness that wrapped itself around me, pulling me away from the crash. The world around me faded and I was swallowed by darkness. It wasn't the kind of darkness you feel when you close your eyes. It was alive, pressing in on me, whispering things I didn't want to hear. Memories flashed in front of me, the lies I told, the people I hurt, the chances I wasted. I tried to fight it, but there was no escape. And then, through the blackness, I saw a light. It wasn't warm or inviting like I'd always imagined. It felt different. It wasn't a comforting glow, it was sharp, piercing, and it seemed to see right through me. I didn't want to go toward it, but I couldn't stop myself. My feet moved on their own, dragging me closer and closer. As I got closer, I felt exposed, like every secret I'd ever buried was being pulled to the surface. There was no hiding, no pretending, no excuses. What would you do if you were stripped of all the masks you wear? If everything about you, your thoughts, your actions, your choices, was laid bare? Because that's what happened next. The light wasn't just a light, it was a doorway. And standing there just beyond it was a figure. I couldn't see their face, but I could feel their presence. It wasn't comforting. It wasn't gentle. It was terrifying. They didn't speak, but I could hear their voice in my head. Do you know where you're going? I wanted to answer, but my mouth wouldn't move. My mind raced with excuses. I wasn't ready. I didn't know. I thought I had more time, but none of it mattered. The truth was, I didn't know. I had no idea where I was going. And that's when the fear hit me. Not the fear of pain or death, but the fear of standing at the edge of eternity and realizing you're not ready. The fear of knowing you wasted your chance. I thought about all the times I'd ignored the truth, all the warnings I brushed off, the times I said I'll deal with that later, but later was gone. Have you ever told yourself you'll fix things tomorrow? That you'll pray, that you'll change, that you'll figure it out someday? I'm here to tell you, someday doesn't come. As I stood there, frozen in the doorway, I could feel the weight of every decision I'd ever made pulling me down. And I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. That's when the figure spoke again. It's time. And with those words, I was pulled through the doorway. On the other side of that light, everything I thought I knew was shattered. The things I'd clung to, the lies I'd believed, the comfort I thought I had, it all fell away. And what I saw next, you need to hear this. The afterlife encounter. When I stepped through that doorway, everything changed. The light was gone, and I was standing in a place I can't fully explain. It wasn't the world I knew, but it felt more real than anything I'd ever experienced. The air was thick, almost alive. I could feel it pressing on me like it knew who I was. Every thought, every secret, every sin. I was completely exposed. Then I heard it, a voice. Not harsh, not loud, but steady. It came from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Welcome, it said. I turned, searching for the source, and that's when I saw him. It wasn't like the pictures you've seen or the stories you've heard. There was no long beard, no robe, no throne. This presence was massive, overwhelming, and impossible to ignore. I couldn't look directly at it, but I could feel it looking at me, piercing through everything I thought I'd hidden. Do you know what that feels like? To stand in front of someone or something that knows you better than you know yourself? There was no pretending, no excuses. I couldn't run and I couldn't hide. The voice spoke again, but this time it wasn't just words. It felt like the voice was inside me, pulling apart everything I'd ever believed. Do you know why you are here? It asked. I wanted to answer, but I couldn't. My mouth wouldn't work, and my mind was racing. All I could think was, this is it. This is the moment where everything I've ever done is going to catch up with me. And then suddenly, I wasn't standing there anymore. I was falling, not like falling through air, but like being dragged through every moment of my life. It was like a movie, but I wasn't just watching. I was living it again. Every choice, every word, every thought was there in front of me. The good, the bad, and the things I tried so hard to forget. I saw myself as a kid, lying to my parents. I saw the fights, the betrayals, the times I turned my back on people who needed me. I saw the faces of the people I hurt, and worst of all, I saw how I'd ignored every chance I'd ever been given to make things right. I kept thinking, I wasn't ready for this. I didn't know it would matter this much. But it did. Every little thing mattered. The voice spoke again, calm but unshakable. You were shown the truth many times, but you chose to ignore it. I wanted to argue, to defend myself. I wanted to say, I didn't know. I wasn't sure. But the truth was, I did know. I just didn't want to face it. Have you ever felt that kind of regret? The kind that feels like it's crushing you from the inside out? And yet, even in the middle of all that shame and guilt, there was something else. Something that felt like hope. It was faint, barely there, but I could feel it, like a thread I could grab onto if I just reached out. That's when I noticed the figure standing beside me. It wasn't the voice and it wasn't me. It was someone else. They weren't bright or glowing, but they felt familiar, like I'd known them my whole life but couldn't place them. They looked at me and said, "This isn't the end, but it could be if you don't listen." My chest tightened. Listen to what? I asked, my voice shaking. To the truth, they said. And then they showed me something I wasn't ready to see. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about God, about life, about the church, it all shattered. What they showed me next changed everything, and if you think you know the truth, I need you to hear this. The revelations. The figure didn't speak right away. They just looked at me, and suddenly the world around us shifted. It wasn't dark anymore. I was standing in what looked like a beautiful field. The grass was vibrant green and the air was pure. It felt perfect. For a split second, I thought, maybe I made it. Maybe this is heaven. But then the figure spoke. This is what you were made for, they said. This is what God wanted for you. But. The word but hit me like a hammer. The field around me began to fade, and in its place I saw something else. It was a church. A familiar one. The kind I used to sit in as a kid, trying to count the minutes until it was over. The figure gestured toward the pews, and I saw the faces of people I'd known my whole life. My family, my friends, even strangers I'd passed on the street. They were all there, sitting silently. Their expressions were blank, almost lifeless, as they listened to a man at the pulpit. "Do you see it?" the figure asked. I didn't understand. "See what?" I replied. Then the man at the pulpit spoke, and his words echoed like thunder. "You are not enough. You must earn your place here. If you fail, you will be cast out forever." The people in the pews nodded, as if they believed every word. "This is what they told you about God," the figure said. "That his love had to be earned, that his grace came with conditions." I stared at the scene, feeling sick. They were right. That's exactly what I'd been taught, that God was watching, waiting for me to mess up, and if I didn't follow the rules perfectly, I was doomed. But the figure wasn't done. "Watch," they said. The church faded, and I saw my own life again. Not as memories this time, but as a series of choices. Every time I doubted God's love. Every time I'd let bitterness and pride keep me from seeking him. Every time I'd said, maybe later, not today. And then I saw something I'll never forget. I saw myself standing at the edge of a great chasm. On the other side was the same beautiful field I'd seen earlier. It was so close, But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't reach it. I turned to the figure, desperate. Why can't I cross? I want to be there. They looked at me, their eyes full of both sorrow and truth. Because you believed the lie. You believed that God's love was something you had to earn, and when you couldn't measure up, you gave up trying. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. But I didn't know. I didn't know the truth. The figure's voice softened. You were shown the truth many times, but you refused to see it. You let the world's lies blind you. God's love was never about what you could do. It was always about who He is. Their words hit me like a tidal wave. I thought about all the times I'd heard people say, God loves you unconditionally, but I never believed it. I thought His love was for people who were better than me, holier, stronger, more faithful. I never thought it was for someone like me. But here I was, standing at the edge of eternity, realizing how wrong I'd been. And that's when the figure showed me something else. They raised their hand, and suddenly, I was surrounded by people again. But this time, they weren't sitting in pews, they were standing in line. It stretched as far as I could see. People from every background, every age, every corner of the world. They all had the same look on their faces, fear. These are the ones who never sought the truth, the figure said. They thought they had more time. They thought they could wait, but now their time is up. I wanted to scream, to warn them, to tell them what I'd learned, but I couldn't move. All I could do was watch as they were led away, one by one, to a place I couldn't see. I turned back to the figure, my voice trembling. What happens to them? Where are they going? Their face was solemn. Some will find mercy, others will not, but all will know the truth they ignored. The line faded and I was alone again. My heart was racing. My mind was screaming. Why are you showing me this? I asked. The figure stepped closer, their voice calm but firm. Because this is the truth you need to see. This is what's at stake. And now you must decide what to do with it. In that moment, I realized the weight of everything I'd seen. The field, the chasm, the line of people. It all pointed to one terrifying question. What if I wasn't going to make it? What if I was about to miss everything God had prepared for me? And the answer was more horrifying than anything I could have imagined. The horror of missing heaven. The figure's words echoed in my mind. Now you must decide what to do with the truth. But how could I decide when I wasn't even sure if I could still make it? I kept thinking about that chasm, how close the field was, yet so far. And that line of people, the fear in their eyes, the hopelessness in their faces. I could still feel it, the weight of their regret, the panic of realizing they'd waited too long. Am I one of them? I asked, my voice shaking. Am I about to lose everything? The figure didn't answer. Instead, the world around me shifted again, and I found myself standing in a different place. It wasn't the field. It wasn't the chasm. It was nothing. The sky was gray, the ground was empty, and there was this deafening silence that wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that screamed at you, that told you something was wrong. I looked around, but I was alone. Then I heard it, a sound so faint it barely registered at first. It was like a low hum, but it grew louder and louder, filling the empty space, and with it came voices. At first, I couldn't make out what they were saying, but as they grew louder, their words became clear. Why didn't I listen? I thought I had more time. I never knew it would end like this. The voices were everywhere, surrounding me, rising into a chorus of anguish. I clapped my hands over my ears, but it didn't stop. And then I realized they weren't just voices, they were people. They began to appear around me one by one, faces I didn't recognize, but I felt like I knew them. Some of them looked desperate, others looked defeated, but all of them had the same hollow emptiness in their eyes. One of them stepped closer to me and whispered, I thought I was good enough. Another followed, their voice trembling. I never believed he could really love me. And then a third, louder, almost shouting, I thought the church would save me. Their words hit me like a wave. Each one of them was telling my story. Every excuse I'd ever made, every doubt I'd ever clung to, every lie I'd believed, they were all right there, staring me in the face. And then they were gone. The emptiness around me grew heavier, darker, until it was unbearable. I fell to my knees, gasping for air. Is this it? I cried out. Is this what happens when you miss heaven? And that's when I felt it. The terror. the terror. It wasn't just about missing heaven. It was about being cut off, completely, utterly cut off from peace, from hope, from love. Have you ever felt lonely, like no one understands you, no one cares? Multiply that by 1,000 and then take away the tiny spark of comfort that says, maybe tomorrow will be better. There was no tomorrow here, no second chances, no way to fix it. And the worst part? I knew it wasn't because God didn't want me. It was because I'd chosen this. I'd spent my whole life ignoring his voice, turning away every time he reached out to me. I thought I had time. I thought I could wait. But time was up. I started to cry, deep heaving sobs that shook my entire body. Please, I begged. Please, let me go back. Let me fix it. I'll do anything. And then the figure appeared again. They knelt beside me, their presence calm but unyielding. Do you see now? They asked. I nodded, unable to speak. This is the cost of rejecting him, they said. It's not about punishment. It's about separation. God doesn't send you here. You choose it. Their words sliced through me. All the warnings I'd ignored, the people who'd tried to tell me, the whispers in my own heart, they were all true. I looked up at the figure, desperation in my eyes. Is there any hope for me? They reached out a hand, and as soon as I touched it, everything changed again. In that moment, I didn't just feel hope, I felt a lifeline. I wasn't sure if I could make it, but I knew this wasn't the end of my story. The figure looked at me and said, "You have one chance left. What you do with it is up to you." And that's when everything started to shift. The turning point. When I touched the figure's hand, it wasn't like anything I'd felt before. It wasn't warmth or comfort. It wasn't even hope, not at first. It was weight, heavy, pressing down on me. But somehow it didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like truth, solid and undeniable. Everything around me went still, silent, as if the entire universe was holding its breath. I looked into the figure's eyes and saw something I didn't expect. It wasn't anger or judgment. It was sorrow. "Why are you sad?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Because I've seen what you've been running from," they said, "and I've seen what you're about to lose." Their words cut through me like a blade. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but I knew they were right. I had been running from God, from love, from truth, and now I was standing on the edge of losing it all. "Do you understand now?" they asked. I nodded, barely able to speak. "I think so, but is it too late for me?" They paused, their eyes searching mine. "It's not too late yet, but you're standing at the very edge. One more step in the wrong direction, and there will be no coming back." My heart felt like it was going to explode. The weight of those words was crushing. No coming back? Forever? Could I really live with that choice? And then they showed me something that changed everything. The scene around us shifted again. I was back at the chasm, staring at that beautiful field on the other side. But this time I wasn't alone. There were people standing in the field, smiling, laughing, full of life and joy. They weren't just happy, they were complete, whole in a way I'd never seen before. And in the middle of them, I saw someone I recognized. It was my mother. She turned and looked at me, her face glowing with a peace I'd never seen in her before. She didn't say a word, but her eyes spoke volumes. She was waiting for me. Tears streamed down my face as I realized what I was about to lose. Not just the field, not just heaven, but the people I loved. The people who had prayed for me, fought for me, waited for me. And then the figure spoke again. "You were made for that field, for that love, for that joy, but you have to choose it." I turned to them, desperate. How? How do I choose it? They held out their hand again, and this time I felt something different. It wasn't just weight, it was warmth. Not the kind of warmth you feel from the sun, but the kind that fills every corner of your soul. "Let go," they said. "Let go of what?" "Everything," they replied. "Your pride, your fear, your excuses. Let go and trust the one who's been calling you all along." I froze. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. What if I wasn't strong enough? What if I messed up again? What if I wasn't ready? But then I remembered the faces in the field, the peace in my mother's eyes, the emptiness of that chasm. And I knew. I couldn't stay where I was. I had to move forward, even if it meant falling. I looked at the figure, my heart pounding. "Okay," I whispered. "I'll let go." And the moment I said those words, everything changed. As soon as I let go, I felt something I'd never felt before. It wasn't fear or regret, it was peace. Real peace. But it didn't end there, because the next thing I knew, I wasn't in that place anymore. I was back in the world I thought I'd left behind. returning to life. The moment I said I'll let go, it was as if the ground beneath me disappeared. I felt like I was falling, not into darkness, but into light. It wasn't blinding or harsh, it was soft, warm, and alive. I could feel it filling every part of me, like water pouring into an empty vessel. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. And then I heard it. It wasn't a voice this time. It was a sound, a steady, rhythmic beat. Thump, thump, thump. At first, I didn't understand what it was. But as the light began to fade and the world around me came into focus, I realized it was my heart. My heart was beating again. I opened my eyes and everything was blurry. I could hear voices shouting, machines beeping, hands pressing against my chest. I was back. I was alive. Do you know what it feels like to wake up and realize you've been given another chance? To know that everything you thought was lost isn't gone? That's what hit me in that moment. A flood of relief, gratitude, and something else. Urgency. I wanted to cry, to laugh, to scream, but all I could do was lie there and breathe because every breath felt like a miracle. As I looked around, I saw the faces of doctors and nurses, their expressions filled with shock. One of them leaned down and said, "We thought we lost you. You were gone for over 5 minutes." 5 minutes. That's all it was. 5 minutes of Earth time. But what I experienced, it felt like a lifetime. When they moved me to recovery, I was still trying to process everything. The field, the chasm, the figure, the voices, it all felt so real, more real than the room I was in. And then it hit me. I was back for a reason. I didn't get to stay in that field because my time wasn't up. I was here because there was something I needed to do, something I needed to tell. Have you ever felt like you've been given a second chance? Like there's something bigger you're supposed to do, but you're scared you'll waste it? That's how I felt. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. I wasn't going to waste this chance. I wasn't going to go back to the way things were, pretending everything was fine while ignoring the truth. The truth is, we're all running out of time. Every breath, every moment is a step closer to eternity. The question is, are you ready for it? I wasn't. But now I am. And I don't think I came back just for me. I think I came back for you. If you're watching this, it's not an accident. You're here for a reason. Maybe you've felt that pull before, that quiet voice telling you there's more to life than what you see. Or maybe like me, you've been running from it. Whatever it is, don't ignore it. Because one day, sooner than you think, you're going to stand at the edge of eternity. And when that moment comes, you won't have any more excuses. If you've made it this far, I need you to stop and think. Right now, in this moment, you still have time. You still have the chance to ask yourself the questions I ignored for so long. The questions that only you can answer. Where are you headed? Are you sure? I don't want to scare you, but I have to tell you the truth. One day, whether you're ready or not, you'll take your last breath. And when you do, the only thing that will matter is this. Were you living for what truly lasts, or were you chasing things that will disappear the second your eyes close? I was chasing all the wrong things. Success, pleasure, distractions. I thought I had time, but the truth is, none of us knows how much time we have. What about you? Are you living with purpose, or are you waiting for someday? Are you holding on to excuses like I did, telling yourself you'll figure it out later? Because here's the thing, later might never come. Right now you have a choice. You can keep ignoring that voice in your heart, the one that's been nudging you, calling you, warning you, or you can listen to it. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm here to tell you that this is real. Heaven is real. God's love is real, and so is the regret of missing it. You don't have to earn his love. You don't have to clean yourself up before coming to him. All you have to do is say yes. Yes to letting go of the lies. Yes to letting go of the fear. Yes to the truth that's been chasing you your whole life. So what are you going to do? Don't wait until it's too late. Don't let the noise of this world drown out the most important decision you'll ever make. If this spoke to you, share it, tell someone. Don't keep it to yourself, because there are people out there, people you care about, who need to hear this too. And if you're ready to take that step, if you're ready to stop running, don't wait another second. Pray. Call out to God. Ask him to show you the truth. He's waiting. He's always been waiting. This isn't just my story. It's yours too. It's all of ours. We've all been given the same chance, the same choice. The question is, what will you do with it? Because the clock is ticking, and one day, sooner than you think, it'll stop. Make sure you're ready. when it does.
You've just heard a testimony that could change lives, including yours. Don't let it end here. If this spoke to you, take action. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs hope, someone who's searching for answers. And if you feel moved, write a prayer or reflection in the comments. You never know who might be scrolling through and find the courage to change their life because of what you shared. Remember, every moment counts. Make the most of this one